Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us. This is Passion Dialogue number 5, powered by Zazazu. My name is Jingjing.
I'm Cassandra.
And thank you so much for spending time with us. We hope that you had a great lunch. We had a great lunch as well. That's why, but still, despite of a great lunch, oh my, blood is still here, right there with you. So for the ones who join us for the very first time, we are Zazazu. We are a discrete e-commerce ecosystem to guide women to explore, experiment, and enhance our intimacy journey through education, consultation, and curation of products. Why are we doing this? We aim to normalize sexual wellness for every woman in daily life and really empower women to own our pleasure and create a safe space for women to learn, explore, discover 360 around sexuality and intimacy. And today is already our number five, the fifth passion dialogue. Don't you think that I sound much more sophisticated? I'm not. I'm just very seasoned. So, joke aside, today we would like to talk about what? Fantasies. Is it okay to have or to talk about fantasies? This is one of the topics that, during the past 4 dialogues, we have mentioned many things around already, and we have often experienced that people reaching out to us, especially women, and also partially men, are saying that we many topics. I have this fantasy, that fantasy, but I'm actually scared to talk, or I'm actually, is it normal? I have some weird fantasies, and then we say, okay, what do you mean by weird? Okay, I like actually, I have dreams about gardeners, and then we're in Singapore. I live in the HDB. I don't even have a garden, but I somehow dreamed about gardeners. And we hear, and then for someone which sounds to be very weird or unusual, we hear this because we are somewhat a consolidated platform. We establish somehow as a safe space, and we hear this kind of fantasy very often.
Yes.
And today we really want to dedicate some time to talk about, can you have fantasy? If you have fantasies, whether you can talk about it and with whom you should talk about it. Do you have fantasies?
I have. Okay, but really coming back to the original questions that you saw, is it okay to talk about fantasies, right? I think it is definitely okay. But as with all things, I think you need to evaluate your target audience, the space at which you are in, and who you are talking to, how you want to talk about it, what is it that you want to talk about it, and actually what do you want to do about it after you talk about it, right? So I think actually, as with everyday topics, there needs to be some sort of boundaries. I think in many things, like let's say if I talk about my breakfast, for instance, some of the boundaries of sorts are kind of like unspoken and no need to talk about, and it becomes you don't have to come down and sit down and have a contract to talk about it, right? But when it comes to fantasies, I think because it's something that very private, so I think a short answer is yes, it is okay to talk about fantasies, but let's now discuss what are the setup to do this. In the first place, for this question to be asked, is it okay to talk about fantasies? I think let's go one step back. Why is it not okay to talk about fantasies? Because I think some people they have concerns about sharing this because in their mind they are concerned with judgment. Okay, in their mind they are concerned with how would the other person or the other party think of me when I do share my fantasies. Right. And again, there's the fear of judgment, fear of letting go of yourself, being very transparent, being very vulnerable to the other party. But if you go back to my sentence, if there were subtitles here, a lot of things are in your mind. Right? You are concerned with the potential judgment that the other person might give you. Okay, I'm not saying that there is, everyone in this world have no judgment at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I think some things you need to verify, and some things, if you set up the boundaries, you remove the question of is there a potential judgment? So in that sense, today if I choose to share a fantasy with you, Jingjing, right? Behind it, actually there is a lot of thought process. What do I mean? Why am I sharing this to Jingjing?
Yeah. What's the rationale behind?
Yes.
What do you want to achieve?
Yeah. But because I trust her, right? In this current setup, okay, we are business partners, we are co-founders, and we want to get to know each other more. And because this is really our business, so I trust her enough to share with her my fantasies, vice versa.
Vulnerability as well, right? Because then, and the thing is, when you are vulnerable, I'm vulnerable, then we share, certain things that only you know, I know, to the most intimate detail, right? These are the things that you usually only share with your partners.
Yes, but even partners, some people are concerned with sharing this with their partners because they're concerned that the partners might judge them. And therein comes with this pre-conversation, like, hey, darling, I want to share something with you. I don't know how you feel, but I'm thinking of sharing my fantasy with you. Is that okay with you? Yeah. I think just ask that one simple question and see how he or she feels like, and let that person know it's because you trust him or her. Yeah. That's why you want to share this with him or her. Yeah. Okay. Does it imply that you want to take this to the next step with him or her? That's for you to discuss and set out the boundaries. And I think it's also fair to also seek the other's permission, like get his or her permission. Would you have similar fantasies to share with me? Or are you actually comfortable while I share my fantasies with you? Is it comfortable for you to share yours with me? Before you go into the details of your fantasies, right? And I think once you establish that ground rules, if he or she is willing to share this with you, great, right? Because I'm willing to share, you're willing to share, great. If he or she is not willing to share this with you, then maybe there is another conversation that you need to have, like, the person is not ready.
Yeah. Is it ready because of he's not ready, or is it because that he's not ready with you as well? So
as well.
This is,
so there are certain, before you even talk about that fantasy itself, the setup of the scenario allows you to consider certain the relationship dynamics between each other. Yeah. So I think that in itself is a very healthy conversation to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if I bring this a little bit into the kink side of things, oftentimes both parties, they actually have a agreement before they actually go into any action. Yeah. Right. What are the boundaries? How far can I go? Or what can I work with you in that context? So that's really a formal discussion about how far you can stretch the limit. Yeah. And I think it goes with the discussion of fantasies as well.
Yeah. I think this is like you rightly said, and then what we often see from our audience so far, when we have reached us, no? Then because at the end of it, it's always a conversation. Like we have a conversation, but of course this is the part that most of you won't know because people reach to us. And what we realize is that we always ask, okay, because very often people ask, I have certain fantasy, is that okay? And then I actually want to share this with my partner. Do you think that's okay? Would he judge me? And then we would always recommend, okay, why do you want to share, like Kat said? Why do you want to share? And what do you fear? What are you afraid of? And these are summarized to three things, actually. One is that I am afraid that he is, in this case, indeed all ladies, I'm afraid that he will judge my fantasy. He will look at me in a complete different eye. So how could you? And then draw away. Second big concern is that, okay, now I share, I'm vulnerable, and he says, I don't want to share with my fantasy actually. Is it because he doesn't want to share with you, or is it because he doesn't want to share just in general? Question. And then third is actually summarized with that one. He doesn't want just with, is it because of our relationship, is it because that I haven't built the safe space for him yet? Or is it because he would feel safer with someone else? So these are questions at the end of the day, all summarized to what Cass just rightfully said, that at the end, what do you want to achieve with sharing the fantasies? You actually, very, very often, you just want to share that we want to take this relationship to the next level.
Yes.
You do not necessarily have to exercise it. I think the fact that I share sort of my fantasy with Cass, and I was like, yeah, I actually feel relieved because she said, yeah, oh no, I get it, totally, yeah, this is the rationale behind.
Yeah.
Very often just because the space, again, a sexual bond, this is the space that so stigmatized, oh please don't talk about it, then you are the bad girls, and summarize all the talks we have already hosted. It's just because that people don't talk about it does not mean that others don't have it. Everybody who has reached out to us have fantasies. You can see really from very, I would say, normal fantasies of being, being in the garden, and then the gardener just came and then spread all the roses, and then having sex with a stranger, or to the really kink side of the things that I mean, of course, that is a little bit more seasoned ones, but at the end of the day, this is all imaginations. Now, I actually really like the conversation we had yesterday after someone reached out to us. We had actually the debate, Is it very, because the debate come actually to the point where one of our client audience was asking, I shared my fantasies now, and he's excited to do this with me as well. But then I shared this with my girlfriend, and she was like, okay, where's the boundaries? Because that scene was rather about, okay, a little bit, I wouldn't say that even says king. It's rather like he thinks that, they have a scene, I think it's very, very common scene. It's a robbery who come, you guys alone at home, and Robert is calm, and you are so vulnerable, and then, okay, then things happen, right? So, but then, in real life, and then so her girlfriend was saying, imagine you set up the scene, and he came because they were quite fresh in the relationship. He was really excited that she wants to fight. She's already into the next level, and then but then she's like, imagine, do you have a safe word? Do you have what if he's too rough and overboard? Exactly. How would you? And then she was like, yeah, I actually never thought about that because and these are definitely things that you should talk about it, and that is perfectly still perfectly fine, perfectly normal, and
and really at the end of the day, fantasies are product of your imagination. So if you replace the word fantasies with imagination, and I replace the title, is it okay to talk about my imaginations? And I'm like, yeah, why not? Everyone can have your different imaginations. Is there a need to question why you have the imagination? Maybe yes, maybe no, but I mean, it's like Albert Einstein has the imagination to come up with eventually a light bulb that you have. So are you going to question why do you have an imagination to create something that lights up on its own, right? So really, fantasies is a subset of imagination. There is no need to question, is it normal to have that kind of imagination or not normal to have that imagination? Is it okay for me to have imagination? Yes, it is okay. But imagination, again, is imagination. If you want to bring your imagination to life, then you set up certain conditions so that it is safe for everyone when it is being brought to life. At the end of the day, you don't want to, we are not saying that you should endanger yourself or endanger someone else by bringing your imagination to life without any boundaries. That's not what we are saying. But what we're going to say is, it's okay to act it out if you and your partner are ready, but really be clear on what you're trying to achieve, and then make sure that it's a safe and enjoyable process that can actually bring a closer relationship between you and your partner. And that is fundamentally what we are talking about. At the end of the day, this is really part of an intimacy journey. Just talking about it in itself is an intimacy journey.
And then actually, I just jump into that. We had a very interesting discussion yesterday because we were like, okay, how do we answer properly her question? And because she was like, okay, what if I share my imagination? No, it's imagination. If I share my fantasies now, what if he wouldn't share his? And then I was like, yeah, that's why I was about to say, yeah, that's really. Depends on, have you created a safe space, or is it right? And then do you give him the enough feeling of that, that it's really just something that special they want to do with him. And then you were like, no, actually, isn't that great that he is not ready? Because obviously, you have reached a next level of your relationship and he doesn't.
Mm.
And I was like, how can you say that? You know, like,
You know it beforehand, so you're aware, and then you can take the steps to
Exactly.
sync it up. Huh?
after I digested, I was like, right, actually, it is better to know, because very often, unfortunately, we live in now as well. I know so many relationships, except beyond sexual relationships, just so many relationships are somewhat already, one partner. I have a friend who has been with his girlfriend for, I think, in the name of 7, 8, almost 10 years. And there has always been a topic, let's get married, and then but then every time they talk about it, and then they separate. And then they separate, but then they realize they come back together, and then nobody talk about this again. But then after a year, the topic will come up again. Obviously, he is not ready to get married, but he is also not ready to let her go. So because the relationship is so comfortable, you get to know, because he always tell me that what if she's, what if outside of her, I'm not 100% happy with her, but what if outside
there's a better choice?
There's a better or worse choice. So
the
that's
unknown.
The unknown. So yeah. So but then I was like, then I am friends with her as well, and then one day she said, okay, my God, you had already 3 boyfriends during the time that we are together. Now you married the last one. So what is happening? And I was like, maybe you all just have to,
Because she found a good man.
Yes. But then it's like, sometimes that it's better to know that he is just not ready, and he might not be ready at all. So then you can make an informed decision. Say, okay, now you have to let me go. Or going back to the fantasy part, at the end, if he's not ready, this is actually a great way to assess your relationship. Are you safe enough to talk about it?
Yes.
And does he feel safe enough to share his fantasy with you as well? If his fantasy is weird, or let's say socially less conformed, are you willing to accept it as well? If you can answer all 3 with yes, ultimately you are in a great relationship. And if you can't, maybe you have to rethink and then reschedule.
Something has to change here in the sense of mindset, fear of judgment, and also would you actually be judging someone else's fantasies? How open-minded are you, right? So if you are, if you feel like you're not open-minded, and then you are not, the inclination of you judging is actually very high, then maybe this is something that you have to rethink. Is that how you want to be in a relationship?
Right.
Okay, again, here there's no right or wrong. Everyone is entitled to his or her own opinions, and how you feel about fantasies, right?
Yeah.
Some people would think that that fantasy is acceptable, that's within my range. Okay, so yeah, why not? But certain things you feel like, no blood, please. Yeah. You even talk about blood, I'm like, faint. right? So everyone has something that you have an opinion about, but just because I don't want to see any like, for instance, fantasies is too strong a word at this point in time. But let's say I watch horror shows, or I watch murder shows. Right? Some people are like, I cannot watch murder shows. Any blood there, I cannot take it anymore.
But some people shouldn't me. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah. So everybody
imagination becomes so vivid, so
vivid has your boundaries, and and it's okay to have the boundaries and the limitations, but you just need to understand it, and then get the other person's understanding that this is as far as I can go. Please do not drag me there. And then once you have that, I think you are both comfortable in your own skin. I think that's the most important part. Ultimately, being in a relationship, right, it's not about who. Of course, it's about who is supporting who, but really, it's also about how can you become a better version because I'm with you. Right? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You amplify each other. Right. And become a better version of yourself, and also becoming more accepting of others. So I think that makes things a lot more healthier and a lot more fun. Good girls can have fun dreams. Put it this way. So really, okay, definitely okay, but draw the line.
And especially when you talk about having fantasies, for sure, everybody has it. Talking about it, why do you want to talk about it? What do you want to achieve? And also, maybe the last point to that is that you are dropping also a bomb sometimes to someone. Is that person ready in the sense of, because for example, a little bit away from fantasy, one of my friends shared with me that she was sexually badly harassed when she was much younger. And then she shared this with me, but when I was, I think I was mature enough, and I was like, yeah, okay, how can I help you? And then shall we go to the doctor together, and so on. I think I treated it in a way that, because this was new to me, and then, so it was okay. But then years later, she actually told me that I was the second person she shared, and this is actually the biggest appreciation for our, I think this was our friendship story or whatever, anniversary of our friendship for 10 years. That was this Facebook notion, 10 years, and she actually said, Eugene, that was something that, my way of appreciation of a friendship is that the thing that I share with you. And I was like, wow, that's not a big deal. I mean, if something that would happen to me, I would share with you immediately. And then she said, no, because I actually shared this with someone else, and with her previous girlfriend, and she couldn't deal with it. So because she was describing what happened, and this caused actually such trauma for that girl, that because her imagination was so vivid, that she actually had to distance herself from her, because then she has many really weird things. Not weird things, I think for her, there is a rationale behind, but she said like, okay, because the way you dress, because you are, too exposed, maybe, and then therefore, if I were to go out with you now, for example, in the evening in the clubs, I might put myself in danger because you are so exposed, which is not that case actually. But then she felt that she was too explosive, and then therefore, if we were together, all men might harass me as well. So actually, because that my friend was so vulnerable and shared the things to someone, but who was not ready to deal with that, which caused actually harm, both in the I would say friendship as well as also for that girl. Because since then, they have common friends as well. She was, I think, for a very, very long time, extremely careful, was a little bit scared to go out, and the city was Berlin, Germany. She was somehow she was not ready to hear this kind of stories. Therefore, since that story, so my friend stopped to tell anyone. And then this was like, for me, then this was lessons learned for me, was that, okay, sometimes people are not ready for your story yet as well. So it could be a simple or could be a very complicated story, but then what do you want to achieve? Think about it, what do you want to achieve? It's such a simple topic actually, but there are many
there's many thought process that leads up to this situation.
Ask why. I think ask why. That's what do you want to achieve? Do you want sympathy? Do you want to have a confirmation, affirmation? What exactly do you want to achieve?
Yes.
And then maybe sometime, maybe I don't know whether it's a good time to. We have got many. I thought that it would be interesting to share that. Two of the most frequent fantasies that we got. Why I want to share that? Because these two fantasies, interestingly, is the most frequent one. Not only for us that we hear the most frequent one, but also if you do some research, you will see this is the most frequent fantasies that modern people like us in this society have. Why we want to target that one is because most women, they come to us and ask that questions. Firstly, have you heard anybody have these fantasies? And secondly, why do I have it? Because the fantasy is so different than the real world, who I am. This is something, for example, the thing I shared with the farmer, you want to do a rose field, and then you encounter someone, and then the farmer, and then he's throwing you in the field, and then you just passionately make love, for example. That's socially, if you share this one, I think socially quite comfortable. Could happen in real life as well. However, the fantasy one I'll share, one of them is for many women, especially successful women. Very often they have this submissive, I would say call that the right term in that segment. It's actually submissive behavior in the sense of they have fantasies that men, you will just take them, and then whether it's punishment, whether a little bit like 50 Shades of Grey, want to be punished, want to be told what to do. I know, really from, bend over, or really things getting order from men. Very specific getting order from men. And then whereas in real life, They could not think about that at all. Imagine you like we have just went through the whatever revolution, and then we finally it's now women are in charge. We have more female graduates from SMU, from all over the university in the world. But then you still want to be, you don't want to be in charge anymore. Now you still want to listen to men and giving you orders. I'm not a secretary. Come on,
In the bedroom.
in the bedroom. And then many women are struggle deep inside and saying, in reality, I am in charge of big teams. Some of them are CFOs. But then in my fantasy, I have this fantasy that men, I want men to do things to me that I cannot, I cannot resist.
Right.
So very, very common. This is actually by women's fantasy, the most frequent fantasy we have heard. Especially, I think, because maybe of our audience, most of our audience are very successful, strong women. They are, most of them, they are married, some of them are in great relationship, and then C-suite, very often, exactly, very often, women like now, we are, although society have enabled us, I mean, we have saying in many, many things, we have sometimes more rights than men. However, from where we come from, often, sometimes it's easy. It's just still nice to have a man, open the door for you. It is still sometimes if I carry heavy stuff, I know I can carry. But it's still nice if a man come and then carry your stuff. And this is actually, not because I can't. It's just nice in a way, right? But in the business world, the society has somehow put us in a way that you have to be better than men. You have to
Do it yourself.
do it yourself. If you can do it yourself, what do you need a man for? You can buy the diamond ring yourself. Yeah, but it's still nice if my husband or if my boyfriend buy me a ring. Sorry.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine. Seriously.
Any day,
So, but then because society requires us to be so hard, so tough, and then on the outside, deep inside, you still want to be, once not in charge, someone tell me what to do. Very often we had this discussion with Cass recently. It was like, how can I calm down? And Cass was like, do some chores, wash dishes, do something that is normally you wouldn't do. Normally I would think, I have better things to do in my time. I can do research and do this, do that. No, do some things that normally you will ask help to do. You just do it yourself because it will give you actually the task is so
take your mind
away. So this I think is very similar. That very often we have so many decisions to make in life, and then especially with men, and then sometimes it's just nice to have someone tell you what to do.
Yes, indeed. And if I may just extend this a little further, yes, it's one of the very common fantasies actually that women do have. But if we step back, I think some men also have that kind of fantasies. I think 50 Shades of Grey is the manifestation of that, right? Whereby, in general, let's not talk about gender. We don't talk about men or women here, but we're talking about sometimes people in power fantasize about not having the power. So the psychic of that, one of the potential reasons of why people have that kind of fantasies is really occasionally, let me just relieve of all this burden and shouldering all that responsibility, and for once, let me let go of my power and let someone take charge and have the power over me. Yeah. But in this very small segment of their their imagination in the bedroom that they have. But whether or not this, for those of you who have such fantasies, whether or not you want to manifest it and then have it executed, right? That's again within your own decision and your readiness, and it can jolly well simply remain as your imagination for you to fuel your bedroom activities when you even just have normal sex, right? But it's a figment of your imagination, and it's perfectly okay. So even if you're in power and you want to give up your power and be a submissive, fine, that's what fantasies are for, right?
Exactly. It's because it's not real. Because it's how we can relive, in a different version of ourselves, which is completely apart from our daily life.
Yeah, that's right. So if I may also bring this a little bit back, back to our original topic, is it okay to talk about fantasies? yes, this is okay, but when you are asking that questions, come back to the fact, why do you have to ask the question? I think it comes back to your self-esteem. Are you concerned that when you share this, someone judge you? But why are you concerned about someone judging you? Can you not stand on your own? Can you not stand by what is in your head and how you carry on your own life, in real life and in your imagination? It all comes back to how strong you are inside, here and here, about who you are as a person, right? If Jinjin doesn't like my fantasy, that's her opinion, right?
And my problem as well, no?
Yeah, yes, but this is my fantasy for me to keep, for me to protect, for me to talk about it if I feel like talking to it and if I feel comfortable talking to you about it. But otherwise, if you don't like it, that's your opinion, but I am who I am. That's where the self-esteem part comes in. So if you are actually asking yourself that question, I think come back to the self-esteem part whereby, why are you concerned? Can I hold this? Even if the whole world doesn't like what I'm thinking, you can still move ahead because this is your life. And exactly, this is what we are talking about. Sexual wellness is way beyond just being in the bedroom, but really part of your holistic well-being. So
I think that's a great closing. So because at the end of the day, sexuality, we always say sexuality informs identity as well. You have many, many different, and then once you are secure in your identity, and this has always been Cass's opinion that everything at the end, if you are stable, what the great sentence you said yesterday, if your statement can stand on his own,
if you can stand on your own, your opinions, your ideas, and what you believe in, as long as you can stand on your own, then there is no fear of potential judgment. Again, we're talking about potential. Maybe no one wants to judge you,
exactly,
but it's on your head, yeah. But why is it on your head, right? So come back to the self-esteem part. Be grounded. Be who you are.
Exactly,
the best version of you.
Okay, time flies by so fast again. Thank you so much for being with us, and we hope to see you next week. Same time, and we will have I wouldn't say much more interesting, this topic is already great, a great topic again for the Fair Fashion Dialogue number 6. So have a great rest of the week, very soon a happy weekend, and see you next week. Bye. Bye.